Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys are doing well. Back at it with yet another video, and this is going to be my video on Mars in the sign of Sagittarius squaring the nodes of fate. Now, if you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel, click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up and like this video. Consider sharing on your socials, and while you're there, follow me on X at BTBAstro, and definitely leave me a comment below and let me know how you guys are showing up this week for this transit. Now, obviously, the topic is going to be all about Mars and Sagittarius, that square that we're going to see to the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, what it means, how it's going to be manifesting, how to work with this transit, and obviously I'm going to take you guys through the 12 rising signs and talk about how to show up for yourself throughout this next week. Now, we're a little early. We're going to be seeing that it is going to be happening on actually November 24th. So a lot of you guys are watching this a couple days in advance. But honestly, Mars transits, they can hit a little sooner. But most of us are going to be feeling this between November 21st and 27th, 2025. Stay tuned to the end of the video where I take you through the 12 rising signs, give you guys some insights, predictions, and some tips on how to navigate that. But boy, oh boy, I know it's been quite a week astrologically. I know that as you guys are watching this, we're coming into the new moon in Scorpio. So there's a lot of clearing out. There's a lot of heavy emotions. We're in a very watery week. But after we get through this period, as we are kind of getting to the end of this next week, it's really going to be about showing up. So we're going to talk about how to work with this. But what you guys need to know is that, obviously squares to the North and South Node from an evolutionary perspective represent something called a skipped step. Now, this means that we must really integrate the energy of that planet in that given sign and house to get out of the past with a square to the South Node and get into the future with a square to the North Node. So what you guys want to be watching for is if you have any particular planets between 12 and 16 degrees of the mutable signs, you will be feeling that the most. So obviously my Geminis, my Virgos, my Saggies, my Pisces, you guys are going to be feeling the impact of that. So this is where it pays to know your personal chart, as well as anybody who is ruled by Mars. So if you are an Aries or a Scorpio rising, you're really going to want to pay attention because your chart ruler is on the move. Now, the energy is going to be building this entire next week. It'll peak next week, actually. So mark your calendars for that surge in tension, but also potential breakthroughs that can be happening during this period. Now, if you have any personal planets that are within that 12 to 16 degree range of either Sagittarius or the mutable signs, whether that's your midheaven, the angles in your chart, this is going to feel a little intense. This is also a square, so it means that it's kind of activating all of this mutable energy, and mutable energy is about change. These are the signs that give way to the seasons as we're preparing to go into what will inevitably be, obviously, new cardinal energy. So it's going to be amplifying the personal drive. That's really what Aries is about, and that connection to Mars. And it's also about potential conflicts, as we know that Mars is associated with conflict. It's about war. It's about showing up and being the fastest or being the first. So it can definitely manifest as some combative energy that's happening in the Sagittarius area of your chart. Now, in astrology, when we're dealing with the North and the South Node, as an evolutionary astrologer, this is something that I always kind of really focus on when I'm looking at a natal chart or transits in action. The main reason why is because the North Node is going to really symbolize what we came here to do, what we came here to accomplish. So when we're applying this in a sense of looking at the transiting planets collectively, that basically means that as Mars is coming into a square with the North and the South Node, we have a moment in time, a brief week, where we get to decide with our actions, are we going to fall into past patterns, or are we going to lean in the direction of taking necessary change to achieve the North Node in Pisces? Now, this is going to be pushing us towards personal evolution and fulfillment collectively. It's all about stepping into our destiny and doing so with faith, right, Sagittarius, as well as courage. Now, that South Node obviously represents past issues, past habits, anything revolving around maybe stagnation or things that we need to be releasing collectively. So together, when we look at this kind of karmic axis, it's really kind of guiding the ebb and flow of what's going to be happening with both personal as well as collective evolution. Now, when we see a planet square the nodes, that means that there is some karmic tension. So this might represent in a way that we're kind of at a crossroads over the next week or so, and we're forced almost in a way to choose between the past or kind of embracing the future. Now, it's pretty common when we see a planet, squaring the north and the south node, that it can manifest as some kind of buildup of tension. This can also mean that there is a crisis. Maybe we're pushed to, take a leap of faith or make a definitive decision. It's likely that we'll see Mars manifest as conflict that's highlighting any unresolved issues, really pushing us to integrate both the past and the future, and being present in the now. Now, it's not easy. Obviously, squares, they do demand some sort of action. This is obviously a Mars type of energy when you're dealing with a square. But the good news is that it does accelerate growth, and it does that by really revealing where we're out of alignment and where we need to have a little bit more faith in ourselves. Now, as Mars goes through Sagittarius, it's kind of in the beginning process. It's still in the first decan right now, but it's still going to spend several more weeks going through this sign. And obviously, Sagittarius is mutable fire, and it's ruled by Jupiter traditionally. So this is energy that is expansive, and it's all about taking bold action, maybe initiating, new things that we're learning. Maybe it's going to be about adventure or travel. But above all, I think this is about taking action in the pursuit of truth. Now, we're going to find that our drives are a little bit more philosophical. Maybe we're feeling more optimistic with Mars in this sign. And many of us are feeling motivated to really, I think, explore new horizons. And that could be through education, that could be through travel. Obviously, heated debates can kind of happen in this sign. The downside of having Mars going through Sagittarius is that it can make us a little bit too overzealous. We can find that we're a little too overly optimistic, maybe impulsive with Mars in a fire sign. And it definitely makes us a little bit more blunt. So it can lead to some situations where we're putting our foot in our mouth, and our energy is a little bit more scattered in this sign as well. But the positive is that it's really great for advocating for our beliefs or putting some of our lessons that we have dealt with in the past to action. So definitely get physical whenever you're dealing with Mars squares. This is a good time to be participating in sports, maybe going for a hike, breaking free from your routines, learning more maybe about, Sagittarius themes. So learning more about travel, making some decisions about how you want to get more involved in really putting your beliefs into action. And I think of Mars and Sagittarius as like a warrior that's on this quest for wisdom. Now, as we see Mars coming into the square with the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo, there's a clash here, right? At least the mutable signs, they can kind of navigate squares a little bit better because they are more flexible than the cardinal and the fixed signs. But this does mean the clash is going to be about the truth-seeking energy of Mars and Sagittarius and the need for compassionate surrender under that North Node in Pisces, as well as the kind of critical, maybe overdoing it, overworking, feeling disorganized or disgruntled South Node in Virgo. So it's like your inner warrior is going to show up over the next week or two, and it's going to want to charge ahead, and it's going to want to charge ahead with big ideas. Unfortunately, the nodes are really going to be demanding that we have to really balance our idealism with practicality. We also have to show up. We have to be willing to avoid escapism. And symbolically, it's really highlighting tensions in fact versus faith. And it's going to be urging us to act on our intuition without ignoring any of the details because of that South Node in Virgo. It's very potent. It's all about resolving any karmic patterns that are likely going to be around service, spirituality, exploration, health, as well as our personal day-to-day habits and even our jobs. Now, throughout this transit, Jupiter in Cancer is going to be the dispositor because Jupiter is the traditional ruler that is associated with Sagittarius. Jupiter also rules the North Node in Pisces versus Mercury, which is the ruler of the South Node in Virgo. So both the North and the South Node rulers are retrograde. I think that that's something that's really important to kind of note, that as we are seeing a planet come into a square with the North and the South nodes, the rulers of the individual nodes are more turning within and they're reflecting. Now, Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. It's going to be here until really next summer. But it is going to be impacting and kind of shaping the Mars energy by infusing it with looking at the past. Maybe in a more emotional or sentimental manner. It can also mean that we're really trying to focus on nurturing or our instincts when it comes to home and family matters. And Jupiter obviously expands whatever sign it touches. So it's going to be expanding, feeling protective, feeling intuitive. And it's going to be really prompting reflection on our emotional security, maybe our ancestry, and anything that deals with our inner abundance. Now for Mars, this means that our actions may feel more sentimental and also a little bit more defensive. So there can be some moody kind of behavior that's coming up throughout this transit. We might also be able to use this in a positive manner to really fuel our compassionate kind of quests. But like I said, watch for the moodiness. There can be a tendency to kind of cling to the past. And the retrogrades that are influencing all of the nodes are really saying that it's time for us to revise how we nurture our ambitions. And we have to kind of not get too emotionally attached to the past. We have to be willing to be brave, courageous, and take the necessary steps forward, even if we don't know what the future holds. Now, I also feel like with Mercury going retrograde, it's actually dipping back into Scorpio. So if you guys caught my astro weather or my new moon in Scorpio video, I talk about how, Mercury is going to be coming into a trine with Neptune, which is going to make us feel a little bit more intuitively kind of guided. It's also going to be coming back into a trine with Jupiter, which is going to be very positive for emotional, clearing, kind of catharsis. Yes, it does show up as a lot of heavy emotions and needing to kind of clear out the past. But I do feel like this can be really positive because for many of us, there is a sense of clinging on to the past. It's not allowing us to really move forward. So many of us, when we see transits that are going through Sag, we're looking for a teacher, a mentor, a guru. Sometimes we're looking for a professional, like a lawyer, or maybe we're looking for a life coach. Maybe some of us are looking to expand on an area that we are wanting to learn more about, like taking a course, continuing, higher education, maybe contemplating or considering, picking up a new book or vibing with a new author. So there can be lots of beneficial things that can happen throughout this transit. And I want to remind you guys that the Mercury retrograde started in this sign as well. So it's really encouraging us all to kind of keep an open mind. But with both of the rulers retrograde, it gets interesting. As Mercury kind of dips back into Scorpio, there is a sense of revisiting old like analysis or secrets. And with Jupiter retrograde, it's adding this layer of internal review about growth and faith and additional expansion that needs to happen on the home front. So as we apply these themes to Mars square the nodes, it's an internal review around growth, faith, as well as our own emotional expansion. I also think that, maybe the retrograde planets are going to slow the pace a little bit. So we're going to be feeling like, okay, there's more tension when it comes to reevaluating our past actions and then deciding if we go, forward. So some of us can actually feel a little timid, or we can be afraid of making the same mistakes again, or we can be lacking some sense of faith or self-awareness that can also be coming up. And we want to really rethink throughout the Mars square the nodes any impulsive moves, whether that's things that have happened in the past month, if it's things that we're kind of contemplating doing now. And we want to heal our karmic wounds through reflection and integrate the lessons slowly. I think for, deeper lasting transformation after this particular square and Mercury retrograde is over. Now, I'm a big fan of the Sabian symbols. The Sabian symbol for this is going to be 15 degrees. And the reason being is the actual square is going to happen at 14 degrees and change. So I'm just fast forwarding the clock to November 24th when we see the square exactly. And 15 degrees of the Sabian symbols for Sag, I think that's the groundhog, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yeah. So if you guys want to pick up the Sabian Symbols book, if you like listening to this and getting a little bit more insight, click the link in the description for my Amazon book list. I have all of the books and the decks that I work with on the channel. All right, so Sabian symbol 15, the groundhog looking for its shadow. The theme is checking things out. So the symbol speaks to intuition and keen sensitivity to signatures and signs of change. A highly developed investigative skills. The image of the groundhog looking for its shadow alludes to practical testing the waters or sampling conditions in order to determine whether or not how to proceed. Implicit in this symbol is an attempt to divine the future or discern predictable patterns. The emphasis here is on flexibility and the willingness to make whatever changes are required in order to accomplish the objectives. At its highest, this symbol represents a natural gift for knowing how to handle difficult or challenging situations. Watch for uncertainty and lack of self-confidence. The accent is on investigation. It would be wise to play it safe and check things out before you decide what to do. Knowing what you don't know is the key to your survival. The greatest advantage lies in being willing to adapt and find the advantage in the situation at hand. Guard against being a scaredy cat or letting yourself be ruled by your fears. Life on the run isn't fun. Okay, so stepping stones is curiosity, inquisitiveness, investigations, apprehension, concern, interest, self-protection, sensitivity, prediction. So feeling things out, but also, like I said, showing up, right? Not being a scaredy cat. And I think that the Jupiter influence can be like, ooh, I don't know, maybe it's, easier to just play it safe, or I've taken this risk in the past and it didn't work, so I'm just gonna stay here. Certainly the Mercury retrograde is going to be very critical in a sense of, well, can we fund this change? Am I ready for it? It can also mean that there can be a need to really release any psychological fears about moving forward. And I'm looking at Mercury retrograde, and it's coming into conjunction with Venus in Scorpio when this happens, which is definitely going to be about maybe making changes when it comes to intimate relationships, when it comes to debt, and spending, or dealing with loans or paying things off. And this particular square is happening at 14 degrees, which is the Taurus degree. But thinking about the groundhog in his shadow, obviously he's popping up out of the hole and he's looking around like, is it safe? And I think that this is about anticipation and some kind of cycle that's coming up for review and whether or not we're actually going to proceed forward. It's also about looking for the signs and the omens that can be indicating now is time to make a move. So I think that it can signify hesitation before some kind of new emergence and the very first kind of steps that we take in a new direction, and maybe feeling like we have to rely on our intuition more to kind of gauge the future amongst some of these kind of uncertain situations. Now with the square, it's going to amplify the effects of doubt or prophecy. Certainly the South Node in Virgo can be very doubtful about the timing, the situation, the scheduling. And the North Node in Pisces is a lot of, well, I don't know, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work, or can we actually really accurately, predict things into the future? I think that tension is good. I like the tension. It's going to be really pushing us to confront our shadows. That could be fears or illusions to gain more clarity. But it can also cause overanalysis and impatience. So we can get so kind of riled up that we're like, you know what, we're just going to kind of forge ahead. In a positive sense, it's going to definitely foster more of a sense of being connected to your intuition and being able to gain some insight. This can also help us really navigate the nodes kind of push and pull by trusting some of our instincts with whatever is going on at hand. Now, if we apply the degree theory and we think about this from the perspective of 14 degrees, this always connects and correlates to the energy of Taurus. And this can symbolize in a way, it's about stability, it can be about sensuality, it can also be about persistence, anything revolving around material security and lasting values through steady effort. So money in the bank, things that we're buying, what we're eating, anything going on with market conditions can certainly be a part of this. So if we blend that Sagittarius energy with Taurus, it's going to be about being grounded when it comes to our physical material things, but also having a little bit more expansive optimism. So it can create a degree of abundant exploration or securing some of our adventures. This might bring more of a tenacious drive to our pursuits. And the square, I think in a way, what it's going to bring up is, for some of us, we might be stubbornly kind of clinging to our beliefs while the nodes are demanding flexibility. So this can lead to breakthroughs for some of us in terms of our values. We can also find that it can be about valuing, something spiritual over something physical. It can also mean that we're really focusing on material perfection, and it's encouraging us to be persistent and taking action towards our goals intuitively without being a little too rigid. I think some people are going to be learning a lot about food, about what they're eating. I think a lot of people are going to be educating themselves about what's going on financially with the world markets, what's also going on with international trade and exchange. We may feel that there is a sudden or significant, push to travel, but I will remind you guys that Mercury is still retrograde. So, I think that we want to be mindful that there can be some impulsiveness that can kind of come up with kind of booking travel on the fly, and then the physical or the financial kind of challenges revolving around that. Globally, I think with Mars square the nodes, I got to be honest with you guys, it can be that there is a major push to fund or invest or be involved in anything that deals with conflict or war. So we can hear about a lot of money that's going towards, pushing towards military incentives, or trade that's going to involve, military related goods, ammunition, anything kind of connected to defense. And it is in an international sign. So we can see that there is going to be international tensions going on revolving around military mobilization. That is very likely. It can be a transit that can trigger something that is more of an economic kind of trade war. It can also be something that is connecting to, pumping up resources, or changing laws, or changing something revolving around the promotion or the advertising of cancer-related things. So I think you're going to hear about, what's going on with the stimulus that might be coming out? What's going on with this money that's going to be injected? Is the money coming from trades? Is it going to actually help families? Is it going to help boost and stimulate the economy, or anything connecting to the housing market? I'm not saying these things will happen, especially considering the fact that we got a lot of retrogrades, but I think it's going to sound really good, but then it's going to be, all right, less talk, more action. Mars wants to see us actually take the necessary actions to better kind of secure our emotional and, domestic needs with Jupiter and Cancer. I do think there could be some heated debates. We can see that there's going to be some kind of ideological clash that's going to happen on the world stage. Maybe there's going to be a sudden surge of people who feel like they're ready to chase big dreams. But we will see some roadblocks that can be kind of coming up with the square to the north and south node. And this can come in the form of confusion and, hesitation. This can also mean that there's more criticism or emotional overwhelm. The good news is that physical energy really peaks. So look at the Sagittarius area of your horoscope. That's where you're going to see the action taking place. And obviously it loves anything to deal with traveling or learning in this sign. However, this square is going to likely trigger some impatience. And like I said, Mars is scattered in this sign a bit, and we can see some kind of conflict between action and surrender. Remember, when planets square the nodes, it's like a moment in time where over a several day period, the universe is saying you're in control. You get to make the decision. Do you leap forward into something and take a chance and take a risk? Or is it too risky, and is it smarter to play it safe and to kind of rely on past habits? I think that what I would also watch for is that we can see that there are delays coming up with taking action. And it can be a time of obviously karmic tests where old habits are resurfacing for resolution. Overall, I would anticipate some major dramatic shifts in perspective with the potential for growth, even if it means there is a little friction along the way. Now, what you want to do to channel this energy is you want to put it into something constructive. Something like studying philosophy, planning adventures. It can also be about advocating for causes with compassion. Definitely practicing mindfulness. So you want to be mindful that there is going to be this tendency to want to have a knee-jerk reaction, or start a fight, or stand up for something that you believe in, or try to get to something very quickly. And I feel like for many of us, there can be a sense of really needing to really balance this impulsivity with intuition and mindfulness practices. So meditation, resting, journaling. And we also want to be tapping into physical outlets. So with Mars and Sag, this can mean that we're focusing more on learning more about health, or we're learning more about anything kind of connected to wellness. It could also mean that some of us are really opting to, kind of get the move on with going for regular walks, maybe doing some hiking, maybe doing some yoga, especially because Sagittarius is a sign that is heat oriented. So stretching, warming up before we stretch, taking our time, as we're kind of planning our workouts, maybe following a coach or somebody who is going to be training us. And Sagittarius rules the hips and the thighs. So if you're somebody who is experiencing some tightness or anything like that, really take the time to warm up and stretch your muscles out before you, go and work out and do anything, so you're avoiding any potential injuries. I would also say that this is a really good time to seek wise counsel to navigate decisions. Because it can mean that, hey, if we don't know, rather than just leaping into something, consulting with somebody who's a professional or somebody who's going to have some kind of experience or wisdom in that topic, they may show up right in the nick of time to help guide you. Now, what you don't want to do, okay, is avoid reckless arguments. There will be arguments, right? Mars deals with head-on impact. It also deals with cutting or burning or anything that deals with lashing out. So yeah, and certain signs are going to be noticing, oh, my car is overheating, or I'm having a fever, or, I got into an argument with my best friend, or, I broke something on accident because I got angry. These things can happen, but we really want to find that if we're putting the energy into something positive, it's gonna be less likely to manifest to some of those more negative kind of effects of Mars. This also means that we need to watch out for overcommitting to unfeasible plans. South Node in Virgo is about what we have to get done. It's our work schedule, it's our health, and all of our to-do lists. And some of us are burning ourselves out, working endlessly with the South Node here, versus the North Node in Pisces, which is about needing more rest or needing more recuperation, navigating things more emotionally, and taking time to kind of be on our own and integrate, by ourselves. So I would say what we really want to focus on is, not overbooking ourselves, maybe escaping reality through, excess overspending, overeating, particularly overspending and overeating on travel. Because it's in Sagittarius and because it's in a Taurus degree, you guys might find that if you're trying to book travel, throughout the end of November into early December, you're like, oh my God, airfare has never been so expensive. The food at the airport is ridiculously expensive. There can also be some hostile kind of conflicts with people that are involving travel. So dealing with TSA or dealing with people who are sitting next to you on a plane, or people who are picking fights, and you're going to see some of that stuff that's going to be happening on social media. I guarantee it. You'll see some viral things that are going to happen about stuff on airplanes. This could also mean that for some of us, this is about steering clear of anything that's about, having a dogmatic stance in a situation, because the squares are really going to punish us if we're being too rigid. So we want to really resist forcing any outcomes and not being flexible. We can also find that, there's a lot of emotional impulses that are coming up, and we don't want to ignore the emotional signals. We also don't want to nitpick others, because I feel like that South Node in Virgo can definitely amplify some of that criticism. Mutable squares can also mean that there are some pretty dramatic things happening with weather, okay? So we can see that there are, a lot of issues going on with, unfortunately, airlines, where there can be some impatient or angry people because for whatever reason, they're being overcharged, or there's flight delays because of weather. Pretty common when we see mutable squares. And on top of that, we can see that there can also be some challenges that can be coming up involving higher education. So we may see that there are some protests, or there are some people that are, standing up and voicing concerns regarding what's going on with higher education. We can also hear some pretty bold words and things that can be very inspirational that can be coming from professionals who are authors, or people who are connecting to philosophy, or anything that deals with the legal system. Sagittarius is known for being connected to court decisions, versus more Libra is going to be the lawyers, or it's going to be the actual court battle. The decisions that are coming from a superior court is going to be Sagittarius. So I'm like, man, is there going to be some big news about what's going on with the court systems? Is there going to be a big decision regarding a long-standing court case? And is it going to be pretty gnarly? Maybe, right? Mars is the dispositor of, Chiron and Aries. So it can mean anything revolving around individual rights. Right? That's what I'm thinking about, and where individuals are maybe feeling impulsive to jump into a legal situation, to start a legal matter, to sue somebody, or to have to be going through defending themselves and feeling the effects and the pain. And that could be legal matters that are also tied to, drug recalls, anything that is connecting to, inflammation or issues revolving around, bodily injuries or harm from taking medications. And I say that because it's squaring the South Node in Virgo, so where there's been health issues. It's also squaring the North Node in Pisces, which can be about pharmaceutical stuff. And it's at a degree that deals with money. So I'm likely, going to be watching the news, seeing what's going on. Is it going to be the stuff that's involving Ozempic? Is it going to be people who are going through lawsuits because they had lost wages because of, past mandates? We'll see. Now, I do think that, overall, if we use this transit to our benefit, I think it could actually be like really beneficial on a personal level. I think that this transit is really going to be stirring that inner fire within us, and it's all about expansion in Sag. But it will come with some karmic lessons. So some of us might feel frustrated, and others are going to feel that there is some kind of epiphany revolving around our purpose, and that we have to kind of ignite some kind of fire and show up and just start the process and move forward. Sagittarius and Mars both remind us that we have to be bold, we have to be courageous, we have to be willing to take risks. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck in the past. So yes, some of you guys may feel like you're being kind of held back, but others are going to feel inspired to move forward. And we're going to be able to deal with some of these resurfacing past regrets. We're going to be able to heal them. And then it's going to boost our confidence, especially when it comes to our beliefs. And it's going to help test us, and it's going to build resilience. So expect some emotional highs and lows. Obviously, relationship debates can come up, reviews of our career or pivots in regards to our plan. And we want to use this transit really to, I think, really help and feel inspired, and, really use it as a catalyst towards personal reinvention. Because after we come out of the square, we're going to be emerging, I think, with a clearer sense of direction and definitely a little bit better balanced action. Now, it is possible that we are going to see out in the world, because of some of these retrogrades, that a lot of the finally getting agitated, fed up, to making a move, taking some kind of action, is because we're getting sick of being stuck in the same place, because we're sick of doing the same thing over and over and getting, the same result. So many of us are going to have to deal with old conflicts, and we might see that there's, scandals that are kind of coming up, particularly relating to kind of healthcare at that South Node in Virgo, or spiritual institutions, churches, religious kind of themes with the North Node in Pisces. And there may be reforms. We might hear that there's going to be some legal changes revolving around healthcare reforms across the globe, not just here in the United States, because both Pisces and Sagittarius deals with global health initiatives. I saw recently in El Salvador just launched their whole new healthcare program that they're rolling out now for, I think, like 30 to 40 something year olds. It's all AI based, of course, but it has it set up so you can go into it, you can get medications, you can get mental health help, you can get all kind of guidance, I think, on dietary stuff. And also it's free, right? And so I think that's a lot of that North Node in Pisces. That's okay, let's be inclusive, let's bring everybody together, let's be also generous. This is a sign ruled by Jupiter. Get out of past outdated ways where medical, kind of standards haven't been working. And let's teach and inspire people to take health into their own hands. So I think that's a good example of this. I'm curious to see how we start to see things happening internationally, where countries are going in a direction where they're either making the system, more difficult and people are more frustrated, or, there's more legal issues kind of intertwined with some of the healthcare practices, versus other countries that are going to go, we need to cut all the red tape, we need to be full steam ahead, we need to be focusing on teaching people about health and education, trying to help them feel inspired, and being able to do this stuff at home. So I think that a lot of people who are wanting to learn about working out at home, making changes revolving around, their diet and their health, and how that can impact not just themselves, but their family and family initiatives where people are doing stuff together. And also feeling emotionally that there can be a lot of positive kind of effects from making some of those health and lifestyle changes. So, we'll see what happens. I definitely feel like there is a potential that we can see that there is going to be also a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up about immigration and humanitarian efforts. Obviously, that's going to rest on what action is kind of taken in the courts. We can also see that there can be some breakthroughs when it comes to philosophy or science with the squares to these particular nodes. But I do think that there is a risk for, misinformation, and definitely some impulsive kind of diplomatic moves that are taking place. But obviously this will be fostering, kind of collective soul searching, and some of us are still waiting for planets to go direct. But I can't stop looking at this Mercury conjunct Venus. That's something that I didn't really have in my notes. And the more that I look at it, that conjunction is going to be at about 22 degrees. So I do think a lot of it's going to be revolving around the future of what's going on with taxes, with interest rates, things that are also going to be connected to debt and loans, how budgets are being handled or kind of utilized, and is there going to be some risky, impulsive things that we start seeing happening internationally that is leading to some changes or reworking or redirection when it comes to the money that countries are making and what's going on with their economic stance. Because Venus in Scorpio is not easy. Mercury is about kind of crunching the numbers and doing the research, and it does look like it may cost a little bit of money to make money and kind of make things beneficial in the long run. But still, lots of static with that opposition to Uranus. It's like, are things actually going to be better? Are we getting deeper in a hole by printing money, or seeing that this could manifest as like being major inflation down the road? So show up this week, guys, okay? And you're like I said, it's going to be exact on the 24th, but really I think the 21st all the way through the 25th, 26th is when we're going to be feeling this. Let me take you guys through the 12 rising signs. Let's talk a little bit about how you're showing up in this next week, where you want to take action, what you want to be mindful of and watch for. Now, as a reminder, I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology I like to practice. I'm not a Vedic astrologer. And I am going to be showing you guys Mars in Sagittarius square the nodes from the perspective of the whole sign rising signs. Now, if you're a Placidus user, no worries. Just find which house in your chart has 14 degrees of Sagittarius. That's the sign that you're going to want to be listening to. So you may have to listen because it's halfway through Sagittarius to the next sign over to get a better kind of picture and understanding. But for those of you guys who like using whole sign, that works too. As a reminder, okay, 12 to 16 degrees of the mutable signs. So if you have any planets there, even if you're not a mutable sign, if you have planets in those degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces, you're going to feel this. And special attention to obviously Aries, Scorpio, and Sag risings. You guys are definitely going to be main characters in this transit. Now I'm going to talk to you guys about which house Mars is moving through, what the themes are here. We're going to look at the squares to the north and the south node, and which houses are getting activated through Mars rulership. And I'll try to give you guys some tips and how to navigate this. But remember that Mercury is still retrograde. So it's actually going to be, going retrograde. And then eventually, we'll have a new moon in Sag in this next month. We're going to have Mercury come back into Sag, Venus come back into Sag. So there is still a lot of reviewing, and I think there is a lot of hesitation, but if you guys can seize the moment with this transit and reflect on what didn't work in the past and feel inspired to move forward, I think that's where the magic happens. All right, so let's take a look at my Aries and my Aries risings. Obviously for you guys, this is going to be rather important, even though it's not happening in your sign. It is happening in a fellow sister fire sign. So I guess the positive is, if you have anything 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 degrees of Aries, right, sun, moon, or rising, this Mars transit will trine you. So that's beneficial in its own right. Look for those trines to help feel motivated to take action. Now, Mars is moving through Sagittarius, and wherever Mars is where you go because it rules your first house of the self. And it's moving through your 9th house where you've had the Mercury retrograde, right? Where you are just seeing the sun coming into the sign. And the 9th house represents higher learning. So college, higher level institution, if you're involved in education. And it can also be connected to your personal philosophy about the world, learning about culture, working with a guru, and it's connecting to travel as well. So I really feel like this is amplifying as Mars goes through your 9th house, quest for truth and adventure. Now, like I said, Mars rules your first house of self and your personal kind of appearance or your body, your identity. And it's also connected to the 8th house of joint finances, transformation. It's also about psychological effects. And as you see Mars go through the 9th house, it's coming into a square at the North Node in Pisces in your 12th and the South Node in Virgo in your 6th. Now, I see this square really manifesting as, energizing bold explorations, like traveling, like learning, but it's creating tension between, being assertive when it comes to your self-expression and surrendering to the intuitive flow and trying not to overanalyze the details in the process. So for some of you guys, this might manifest as, I just have to get away, right? I just have to get a break from work. I need to kind of have some time to recharge and rest. For others, it can mean that You have to show up in a way where you're working with a professional, you're getting guidance. Maybe it means that you're working with a guru. And I think that it's really going to provide you guys with a lot of opportunities for travel or potential learning, like plans. So it is also possible that there could be some philosophical debates that can be kind of coming up that's really challenging your identity. But I think being ruled by Mars, it says that there's going to be a breakthrough for some of you guys, and that you go on a trip or you take a course that changes your perspective. It could also bring breakthroughs in intimacy and finances if you're willing to take risks. My advice is, Aries, embrace the spontaneity that comes from this transit. Embrace anything that deals with education and learning. Definitely double and triple check any of your travel plans or your education plans. And be mindful of any legal issues, okay, that could be potentially looming. Getting involved in one, starting one, I would say just really take your time. Allow Mars to kind of do its thing and continue to go through this sign. And even if there are some travel changes and mishaps that happen along the way, it's all about the adventure and kind of being present in what you're learning, putting yourself either or like immersing yourself in a subject or in a culture or in a location that seems foreign to you and what you kind of learn about getting around. All right, so good luck, Aries. Let me know what happens. Lots of catching flights for you guys. All right, we got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's going on, Taurus? We're going to be talking all about Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 8th house. The fact that it's coming into a square at the South Node in Virgo in your 5th and a North Node in Pisces in your 11th. So Taurus, Mars is transiting your 8th house. And this is a house where Mars does very well because Mars is traditionally associated with Scorpio through the 8th house. Now, this represents an area of your chart that's about intimacy. It's also about shared finances. It can be about transformation and also a little bit of mystery. So this will be intensifying deep emotional or financial shifts that are taking place. And the 8th house deals with other people's money. So the money that a partner is spending, it could be dealing with inheritance, tax-related matters, loans, all of that stuff. And Mars traditionally rules your 7th house of relationships. So, marriages, business partners, clients. It is also connected to your 12th house of your subconscious and things you don't see or sometimes self-undoing. So when we see this square that's coming up between Mars in your 8th to the North Node in Pisces in the 11th of networks, friends, and goals, and the South Node in Virgo of creativity, children, and the self, I think the square is really kind of stirring up passionate mergers, but there can be tension that can actually arise from hidden fears that's clashing with, a need for compassionate release, but also maybe feeling a little critical of your partnerships. It is possible for Taurus and Taurus risings to experience financial windfalls or intense relationship themes or, a lot of money coming in through partners or generosity through partners. And I feel like it's important to really watch for subconscious patterns that could potentially erupt. Be open to the changes in intimacy. Be open to merging finances or feeling supported through another person. I think it could be very transformative and it can be very healing. Some of you guys may benefit from, diving deep into therapy or working on, having better conversations about joint budgeting. This is also really good for any occult studies or anything that deals with mysticism. Some of you may also feel that you need to set boundaries when it comes to joint ventures as well. So watch for that because other people might be feeling like they're pushing you to spend and you want to save or vice versa. But overall, I think to best navigate this, what you want to do is you want to release control in intimacy. Definitely trust your intuition and don't focus on the details too much, and revisit past alliances for growth and try to connect or collaborate with people who can help you evolve when it comes to your security. Good luck, Taurus. All right, for my Geminis and Gemini risings, you guys are going to experience Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius, your opposite sign in the 7th house of relationships. It will be forming a square to the South Node in Virgo in your house and home sector and the North Node in Pisces in your career and professional standings house. Obviously, woof to be a Gemini rising right now. My God, you guys complete the square. So if you have anything 12 to 16 degrees of Gemini, you'll be experiencing what we call a grand mutable cross, which means everything is changing. Not only that, but your chart ruler, Mercury, is retrograde at the same time in the 7th house. So it's clear that the cosmos really want you to take a good hard look at what's going on in relationships. How are they evolving? Who's working with you? Who's working against you? Where are people showing up just in the nick of time? And Mars obviously traditionally is connecting to your 11th house of friends. This could also be goals and networks. It's also connected to your 6th house of health and work, okay? So as Mars is going through your 7th house, what's gonna happen here is it's gonna square the north and the south node, and it's gonna activate the need for bold collaborations, right? And obviously the 11th house ruler, but it's going to bring up friction through the square between relational honesty, maybe, empathic bonds with that north node in Pisces, as well as service-oriented critiques that might be coming from families. So, where partners are showing up and there is some big changes happening in professional relationships, romantic relationships, that's going to be impacting your home life, as well as what's going on with your career and your status. Woof. I think that you're already in the midst of reevaluating what's going on with relationships with like the Mercury retrograde. So I could look at this and go, all right, for Geminis, new alliances can be showing up. People could show up just in the nick of time. Because Mars rules your 6th house, it might mean new people to work with, new clients. Maybe you hired an assistant. Maybe you are, working hard to kind of get things in order in a new space or a new job. It could also mean there's friends who are showing up for you just in the nick of time as well, if you're kind of experiencing some stress. But if it's not new alliances, it's going to be conflicts. And these conflicts can come through romantic relationships or with groups and people at work. Now, there could be opportunities, obviously, for a group adventure because it's in Sagittarius, but you may also feel like there's some stuff going on in relationship land that's really testing loyalties. My recommendation is to communicate openly. The 7th house wants you to get it out in the open. Sometimes Mars going through there, you have to confront something or someone and you got to deal with it and just air it out. And we can also find that this is a really strong time for you to be partnering with people and networking, and there could be a lot of optimism revolving around groups and connections and collaborations. Now, to best navigate this, I would say, well, we want to foster compassionate connections with the North Node in Pisces. We want to be mature in how we're handling relationship and professional manners. Try to avoid any argumentative debates because you're going to see people who are going to come out guns blazing, and try to use the retrograde to refine your daily routines. Good luck, and pay attention to who shows up for you because there can be some people who can really help you navigate some of the changes going on in your life. All right, we got Cancer and Cancer rising. What's up, Cancer? You're going to be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 6th house of health and habits, squaring the South Node in Virgo in the 3rd of the mind, and the North Node in Pisces in the 9th of philosophy, travel, education. All right, well, this is a little personal for you guys. Even though Sagittarius is a sign that in conjunction or quincunxes you, it is all vibing off of Jupiter in your sign. So it's about reflecting on what can I change? What can I get in order? How can I be healthier? How can I be more productive? Where can I be of service best? Okay, so try to keep that in the back of your mind. I think as Mars is going through the 6th house, the good thing is that Mars does really well in this house. It wants to get things done. It wants to be productive. It does represent a transit that's all about your daily routine. So whether that's going to the gym, walking the dog, as well as health, work, and service, and really boosting when it comes to productivity and self-care. Now, in your chart, Mars rules your 10th house of your career and anything that deals with your reputation, as well as the 5th house through Scorpio, which deals more with creativity, as well as romance, maybe even children. So this energy is for, I think, building more efficient habits, but you're going to find that it's going to clash with issues revolving around spiritual wellness, maybe even travel or education plans, and anything that deals with communication and issues revolving around kind of perfectionist tendencies. So when we look at these squares, it's happening in houses that are very much kind of connected to trying to find your daily flow and how to better communicate and plan for travel or plan around, work-related matters. I think the positive is that a lot of Cancer risings can actually see some major career advancements that can happen with this transit that is going to be requiring you to take some bold steps forward. You have to initiate something under this transit. This is also great for creative or romantic sparks and making more time for creative hobbies, spending time with your kids, or dating. Just keep in mind some scheduling tweaks or some health tweaks may be necessary. This is also happening in a house that deals with, work and more work, potential health-related matters, or issues regarding, accidents, obviously touch wood. So keeping an eye on, accidents in the workplace, keeping an eye on the health of pets, health of kids, I think is important. And also, you're one of the signs that I would say don't overload your schedule, because there could be way too much stuff that's going on in your schedule. You have a good aspect for showing up, for being like, okay, I'm going to the gym, or I'm going to start my walking routine, or I'm going to be, more mindful of how I'm eating or how I'm treating my body. And this is all maybe about, bringing in the opportunity to kind of adopt new workouts, or maybe organizing more with a sense of personal insight and kind of navigating your day to day by knowing just exactly how much you can get done and not taking too much on. So consider prioritizing. I think holistic health is really good for Sagittarius, and really balancing your ambition with rest. And reflect on past creative blocks and make time for more creative flow, and you'll feel inspired for sure with this transit. Good luck, Cancer. Let me know what happens. For Leo and Leo rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Mars transiting through the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 5th house. Obviously, as a Leo or a Leo rising, this will most likely be trining some of you guys, so it can be beneficial in that sense. So lean on into the trine for you to be feeling like you can navigate this a little bit better. Mars is going through the 5th house, which obviously is going to represent creativity. It can be about your children. It could be about romance. It could be about hobbies, taking risks, and obviously having fun. The 5th house is about having fun and having passion and having play. And Mars rules your natal 9th house, which is going to be about travel, higher education, and your beliefs, as well as your 4th house when it comes to home, family, and the past. So we're taking those two themes, we're putting it in the 5th house, where Mars is going to square the South Node in Virgo in your personal money, financial house, and the North Node in Pisces in your joint finances, intimacy, and psychological house. Putting it all together, when we see this square, you're one of the signs that I would say that really would benefit through taking risks. And that could mean in any way, shape, or form. Maybe some of you guys are going to feel like there's a creative drive that's coming up, and it's really squaring off against this intuitive sense of, expression with the North Node in your 8th house, versus any analytical, self-doubt when it comes to your finances, your pleasure. And the 5th house is like gambling, or a slot machine, or, taking a risk on a project, or following your heart. And it's trying to get you to get creative when it comes to making money, and not being in a scarcity mindset, and being willing to take risks so that way you can gain more through the North Node in your 8th house. But it also could mean romantic risks, right? And, building stronger trust or intimacy or joint finances as well. So I do think that you guys have to kind of watch for romantic adventures or artistic breakthroughs. I think that's what's likely going to happen. That may manifest for some of you guys as family travels, or maybe even some home decoration that's kind of happening with a flair with Mars's tie to your 4th. Entertaining, hosting people at your home, moving in with boyfriends, talking about the future of family, that kind of stuff can happen here. And I would really be really embracing some of the joyful risks that kind of come up, letting go of criticism, and really revisiting family philosophies for inspiration when it comes to feeling creative and kind of embracing this heart wide open transit. Good luck, Leo. I hope that's a good one for you guys. That's fun. All right, for my Virgos and Virgo risings, what's going on, guys? You're going to be experiencing Mars going through Sagittarius in your natal 4th house of home and family. Now, it will be squaring the South Node in your sign and the North Node in Pisces in the 7th. So there is this pressure that's emerging in your 4th house that's going to show you where you stand personally in relationship to another person's 7th house. Mercury's been retrograde in this house already. So a lot of you guys are already seeing, I'm going back home, or I'm moving, or we're selling our house, or we're remodeling our house, or we're doing something different with the holidays, or there is some kind of change going on that involves home and family or travel. It's a little tricky for you guys because you're still in the middle of that Mercury retrograde. And if you happen to have anything between 12 and 16 degrees of Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, you're really going to feel the pack of this. There's a major punch that's going to be kind of coming. So with Mars going through the fourth house, which represents your home and your family or your emotional foundations, likely it's kind of stirring up some domestic changes. And change can be good, but there can also be some conflict that's been brewing with family or roommates. Now, Mars rules traditionally your 8th house of joint finances. This could be loans, debts, money owed, inheritance, tax-related matters. And it's also connected to your 3rd house of travel, communication, and anything that deals with siblings. Now, what's going to happen here is when Mars squares the North and the South node, it means that you're going to have to take some kind of necessary action on the home front. And you may feel as if home actions are really conflicting with your relationships, or maybe it's kind of conflicting with your own, sense of peace, or, this critical sense of self-analysis that you're going through with the South Node in your 1st house. It will feel a little intense. I do predict that there can be family debates. There can be situations that kind of get to a boiling point where you're like, okay, we must move, or we must travel, or we must make a change. Or for some of you guys, it's conversations with siblings, with neighbors, or financial changes about your home and living situation. I do think that even though there is going to be some intensity, communication is going to be your best friend. And this is really going to be about getting creative and kind of rolling with the punches with what's changing when it comes to your home situation. And it can really open the door and lead to more connectedness in your relationships. I think also a lot more emotional depth and learning how to have a conversation and how to navigate change either with your family or with a partner. I would also encourage you guys to consider, making some changes in your home, updating your home, moving some furniture around. Maybe you're getting out of the home for the holidays. You're doing something different when it comes to your partnerships this year. This is also about not being so self-critical with the South Node in your sign, and it's really about using the retrograde currently for some kind of subconscious healing and really getting to the bottom of where maybe patterns are repeating in your home or your living situation, how that has been, or needing to be kind of resolved now, especially when it comes to where or how you're living, and some big turning points that are then going to be happening in relationships. So some of you guys will move in with others. Others will say, hey, we're going our separate ways. Some people will opt to move and relocate as a result of changing relationships, only to open the door for new people to come in. So Virgo, definitely nurture your roots compassionately. Try to do that throughout this transit. Release this feeling of needing to be perfect, and really focus on subconscious healing, especially when it comes to ancestral patterning. Good luck. Let me know what happens for you guys. Certainly you're one of the signs in the hot seat. Libra risings. You guys are going to be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 3rd house. This is the house that deals with the mind, communication, siblings, vehicles, neighbors, and learning. And it's going to square the South Node in Virgo in your 12th and the North Node in Pisces in your 6th. All right, so for Libras and Libra risings, what you guys need to know is that Mars going through the 3rd house is all about communication, okay? And this is also going to be about how you're communicating in the day-to-day. That can mean online, that can be via text or phone, that could mean, dealing with siblings, or maybe you're feeling pressure to, kind of scramble and do some travel. But maybe it's also amping up energy revolving around learning something. Now, Mars traditionally rules your 7th house of relationships and partners. So this could be your clients, this could be your spouse or your significant other. It's also connected to the 2nd house of money, personal values, and resources. But when Mars goes through the 3rd house, you need to be really mindful of how you communicate, especially because Mars is going to square the South Node in Virgo in the 12th of what's unseen, the North Node in Pisces in the 6th of your daily health and habits. It's possible this could manifest as blunt words with the square and being like, okay, do I say this or do I hold back? That could be the South Node in Virgo. Do I say nothing? And then the North Node in Pisces is, do I need to say this because it's going to better work with my schedule, or I need to say this because I need peace of mind? And we might find that, there can be more kind of critiques in the day-to-day communication that you're having with other people. Positive is that it might push some of you guys to actually go on an adventure, book a road trip, hang out and focus on, spending time with your siblings, or sitting down and having a conversation with a partner about money matters. It also can be really bold for negotiations and financial talks in relationships. I would say use this transit to write or speak the truth, and be mindful of how it comes out, because you can put your foot in your mouth. If you have the opportunity to take quick getaways, you can. Just be mindful of anything that you're kind of signing or agreeing to under the Mercury retrograde. And do your best to communicate with empathy and avoid like rash words, really focusing on reflecting on values in relationships. Now, also, I think this is a time that if you're needing to start a blog, you're wanting to work on a website, you're needing to start writing something or be learning something, you can do that as well. And you can really be sharing that with, your siblings, or even be sharing that with your partner. And it can feel very inspirational in the process, right? So good luck, Libra. I hope it's a good one for you guys. All right, Scorpio and Scorpio risings, you are in the hot seat. This has been quite the month for you guys with the Mercury retrograde, so hope you're hanging in there. We're going to be taking a look at Mars, your chart ruler, moving through Sagittarius in the second house of money, values, and personal self-esteem. Now it'll be coming into a square with the South Node in Virgo in the 11th house of friends and others, and the North Node in Pisces in the 5th house of romance, creativity, and self-expression. And Mars rules your chart. So Scorpio, how's it going? Obviously, Mars going through your second house kind of feels like it's money that is burning a hole in your pocket. Okay, so there can be lots of expenses that are going on right now. You may feel like those expenses are more than usual because Jupiter is magnifying that. Obviously, your second house also represents your values, the possessions that you do have, your self-worth, and the drive when it comes to resource building. Now, Mars doesn't just rule the first house of self and body, it also rules the 6th house of health, habits, and routines, or anything kind of connected with doctor visits, dealing with pets, anything that's connected to also work and your relationship with coworkers. So you're gonna feel like there's a lot more having to, number one, invest in yourself. And you have to feel a little bit more confident during this time, even though I think some of you guys are gonna be frustrated and you're gonna go, I'd rather be spending the money on travel, but I'm having to invest in going and seeing a new doctor, or taking my pet to the vet, or maybe there is this sense of needing to feel more confident in what you're actually capable of being able to achieve. So when you see the North and the South Node get squared by Mars, what's going to kind of come up for you is that there's going to be some kind of value clash that's coming up, and it's going to be about whether or not you're putting the money into your kids, or dating, or creative projects, or having fun, or even taking a risk and making an investment in yourself or in a creative project, versus critiques that might come from other people, changes with friendships. Like, there can be this sense of you feeling in limbo where you're like, should I be, launching this project? Should I be doing this thing? Are people going to like it? Is it going to make me feel happy? And am I going to make any money in the process? And I would say that, believe it or not, Scorpio, because Jupiter is the dispositor, even though it's retrograde in the 9th, you may actually come up with a really great idea for something that you can publish, something you can sell, something you're investing in that can actually help kind of pay for some of your exploration, your travels, or other things, later on in next year. And many Scorpio or Scorpio risings will actually see an income boost, and that will come through taking risks. Those risks are going to require you to make some necessary health or schedule changes, potentially even work changes that's about really enhancing your identity. Now, my recommendation here with Mercury retrograde in your second house and Mars going through it is, budget, and still keep in mind that you can be optimistic, or you can be setting money aside for future adventures, and invest in self-growth. If it's gonna make you feel better, if it's gonna educate you, if it's gonna be something that's gonna help you feel more confident, those are the things you want to invest in. That's money that's well spent. And I think that you guys are really going to see that as we get later into November, going into December, Mercury coming into the second house, Venus coming into the second house, you guys are going to see that some of the risks that you guys took paid off, and it was money that was well spent. So let me know what happens, Scorpio. Be bold, be brave, and continue on with this transit. All right, Sag and Sag rising. How you guys doing? I've been following a lot of my Sag and Sag rising friends, my clients. I'm seeing your guys' comments. I know a lot of you guys have been crashing out. It's going to get better. This is one of the turning points. This is the moment where you guys decide what you stand for. This may also be a moment that makes you realize and recognize you might be the problem. I know it's hard to admit. And a lot of that is tied to the fact that Mars is in your first house of self, but Mars is the ruler of your 12th house of self-undoing, the subconscious, and anything revolving around behind the scenes. Mars also rules your 5th house of creativity, self-expression, creativity, and joy. So as Mars is going through your sign and it's going through your first house if you're a Sag rising, look, Mars does very well here. It's very strong. And it really, what it represents for you guys is that, you know, you're really focusing on your identity. It can mean that you're representing yourself, you're standing up for yourself, you're changing something about your appearance, and it does supercharge your personal energy. Because Mars rules your 5th house of creativity and your 12th house of the subconscious, those roles are going to kind of come through Mars and your first house. And when Mars is going through the first house, it's about being assertive. The challenge here is that Mars is going to square the South node in Virgo in your career house, and it's going to square the North node in Pisces in your home house. And this is going to represent a rather dramatic turning point for you. This is where you're going to ask yourself, do I want to get out of the past? Do I want to go into the future? Where do I need to get out of my own way? Where am I having some blind spots and some things where maybe I'm frustrated or I'm agitated, or, you know, maybe I'm feeling a bit down, but now I need to push through. And so what you're going to find is that this is going to be really about self-assertion that's coming up, and it's squaring, you know, the North node that's in your 4th house, which deals with your home and your family and emotional confusion. It's also squaring the South node in the 10th house, where there could be some criticism going on revolving around work or your career. And this is going to amplify anything that deals with karma. But the planets are in your sign. The Sun and Mars are in your sign. What are you going to do about it? Relationships might be changing. Work might be kind of shifting. You might feel more emotional, or there's a lot more responsibility on the home front. But the positive here is that I really feel like your identity can shift here. There can be bold makeovers. You can pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and suddenly you feel like, okay, I can get creative, and maybe all of these hidden blockages and subconscious things are now very obvious to me, and things that I haven't been dealing with. And it'll give you the opportunity to channel this Mars energy in a way where you can assert your boundaries, and you can do it optimistically, and you can also feel like you can stand on your own 2 feet. Now, to best navigate this transit, you want to act with faith. Be mindful that we have to balance the ego with compassion here. And even though, you know, you're feeling a little feisty and you want to create change, other people may not respond to kind of like your agenda very well. So focus more on yourself, and definitely take time to reflect on subconscious patterns and try to do something creatively behind the scenes, whether that's working out, being creative, working on little hobbies, things like that, to help you navigate being kind of in limbo a little bit when it comes to your 4th and your 10th house themes of home and also your career. Get motivated, get moving, right? Especially if you guys have been feeling really heavy. I've had to say this to a lot of Sag and Sag risings. I'm like, depression hates a moving target. If you continue to keep moving throughout this transit, you're going to be able to pull yourself out and also feel like, okay, I can take on some of the changes I need to make on the home front, in particular, because planets are starting to form a superior square to all of this Pisces. It means that you have to motivate yourself and get moving so you can feel better, so you can kind of deal with some of that home and family drama, right? So good luck, Sag. I'm sending you guys lots of good vibes. Let me know how it manifests for you. All right, my Capricorns and Capricorn risings, you guys are going to be experiencing a Mars in Sagittarius in your natal 12th house of the subconscious, spiritual, and self-undoing, coming into a square with the North node in Pisces in your 3rd of communication and learning, and the South node in Virgo in your 9th house of travel, higher education, and beliefs. Wow, well, the 12th house is just like loaded, man. Obviously dealing with a lot of kind of hidden energies, maybe some naughty habits, some isolating tendencies, but also some hidden enemies stuff that's kind of coming up, right? So I'd be paying attention if I was a Capricorn rising right now, because you're going to start seeing either in dreams or through intuitive hits or something that's going on. It's preparing you for Mars starting to come into a square with Saturn. I would really pay attention, because that's going to be about a week or 2 later. That's going to start to kind of heat up, and that's going to be your intuition or your gut kicking in, trying to let you know, hey, there's something going on, and likely it might manifest in your dreams, I think, with Mercury retrograde in that sign too. Anyway, Mars is going to be moving through your 12th house, and the 12th house does represent where we wrap things up. It's our bedroom, it's subconscious, it's solitude, it's also about spirituality and endings. So it's really kind of stirring this inner drive of what we need to hurry up and complete. Mars traditionally rules your 4th house of home and family, and it's connected also to your 11th house of friends, networking, and goals. So when we put those themes together as Mars goes through the 12th house, it basically means that there can be hidden actions that are coming up right now, or you're feeling conflicted with things, and there is this need to kind of go, okay, am I surrendering to what I cannot see so clearly? Or am I going to be feeling overly analytical about the situation? And you might feel like a lot of this is a major test of faith right now because it's squaring the ninth house and the third house, trying to communicate your beliefs and probably needing a little bit more alone time. That's the vibe that I get with this. So watch for dream revelations. Nightmares can happen here, really prominent dreams, things forecasting the future. It could also mean stuff where you might be changing your home, you might be moving. It can mean that you're connecting with friends and you're kind of needing a outlet to kind of talk about, what's kind of going on for you subconsciously. And this is a really good time to really be contemplating whether or not you want to get into some kind of spiritual studies or work. It could also be about doing some, occult studies, or you're studying anything that deals with like shamanic work or dealing with past lives, like past life meditations and regressions can be really beneficial with this aspect. Because you're going to be wondering if you should surrender or if you need to figure out and kind of, put the details together of what like the hidden blocks are. Now, watch for also changes where there could be closure that's coming up revolving around a home situation, a family situation, or some of your friendships. And I would say to navigate this energy, you have to meditate actively to really work with the 12th house. And really focus on releasing grudges, because grudges and things where you've been kind of blocked and holding on to the past can also manifest and come up for us to clear out here. And you really want to embrace solitude and take time to really tap into your intuition in the 12th house so you can heal privately. Maybe you can reevaluate some of your friendships or your home or living situations. And you're really going to get the best insight when you have time to relax and kind of be alone. Sagittarius can mean that, you're studying some kind of foreign meditation technique, or you're working with a guru, or maybe you're contemplating or considering, going to a healing center, or you're going to go on a retreat, something like that that's going to help you really tie up any of these subconscious loose ends or anything that deals with karma that's connected to your family. All right, so embrace that solitude. I hope you guys get some healing in with that transit. Let me know what happens. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are going to experience Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius in your 11th house of friends, networking, and goals. And it will come into a square with the North Node in Pisces in your 2nd house of money and income, and the South Node in Virgo in your 8th house of other people's resources and intimacy. Well, Aquarius, there's been a lot of action going on with friends, right? You've had a Mercury retrograde there. This is a house that's really about your social connections, going to parties, gatherings, who your friends are, but it's also about your goals. And so I would say off the bat, I would want to be surrounding myself with movers and shakers and goal-oriented people. That's very important. Now, Mars traditionally rules your 3rd house of communication and the mind. It can also be dealing with siblings or any kind of emails or like letters or any documents. And it's also connecting to your 10th house of your professional life and anything revolving around your career. So what you're going to find is with Mars transiting the 11th house, there's going to be this theme of revolving around, friends, groups, and networks, and it's really energizing your social ambitions. But when it squares the North Node in the 2nd house of money and resources and the South Node in the 8th house of other people's money, this is going to create some kind of group dynamics or actions where, it can be very financial, where you're getting together with, other people, and it's like, okay, who's contributing and pulling their weight? And you may feel like in certain situations, you're having to pay more, you're having to contribute more, you're having to pull your weight more. And that's because, other people can't. They may be dealing with shifts going on with their financial situation. They may be dealing with shifts with their jobs. And you may be feeling a little bit more compassionate when it comes to your friends. And you're like, come over, I'm hosting a holiday party, just bring yourselves, you don't need to bring anything. And that's that compassion energy that comes from the North Node in Pisces. But it can also mean that your goals revolving around your finances and your resources are changing in some capacity. And I would say with a Mercury retrograde and a Mars transit in the 11th, this is about really networking. And like I said, surrounding yourself with people who are going to be movers and shakers. Now, there can also be heated debate with friends. There could be some connections that can really lead to some major changes in your career and some, goals that kind of come up for you because of other people who help you feel inspired. I would be using this as a time to get active with other people and joining causes or kind of collaborations with people who you're in alignment with, people who are bold, culturally diverse, very intelligent as well. And trying to make friends or network in a way that's going to help boost your career. I think this is about making friends in the right places and finding that you're settling into working and collaborating with the right team. So there can be career talks that can really lead to, you know, finding your space or place in it all, and really pursue your visions with this transit the next week or so in a compassionate manner. Try to avoid isolation and definitely reflect on communication, and take value or take stock in who or what really makes you feel secure, friendship-wise or financially. That's going to be a really big turning point. Good luck. And for my Pisces and Pisces risings, you guys are going to experience Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 10th house of career. If you happen to have any placements around that 12 to 16 degrees of Pisces, you're going to feel it. But honestly, I think all of the Pisces risings are going to feel this, because even after Mars comes out of the square here in about a week's time, Mars is going to start coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune. And I have talked to quite a few Pisces and Pisces risings going through the Mercury retrograde. And for a lot of you guys, it's been about, okay, what's changing? Where am I redirecting myself with work? And it can mean that you're changing jobs. It can mean that you're getting ready to launch something new, or, you know, you're trying to really prioritize being efficient and you have some assistance at work. Or maybe for some of you guys, it's relational changes that are happening and how you're kind of reemerging out in the world. So Mars going through the 10th house really represents this revving up energy in regards to your professional kind of standings. And you can be feeling more competitive. Things can be just kind of happening very quickly. It can also be bringing up for many of you guys that this is a time to really show up when it comes to your career and also your reputation. And it can boost your visibility as well as your personal ambition. Now, Mars rules your 2nd house of personal resources through Aries. It's also connected to your 9th house of your beliefs and anything involving travel, education, or legal matters. So when we put Mars into the 10th house with those themes square the north and the south node, I mean, it's very personal for you guys. I see this as the possibility that you're showing up for work and you're really pushing yourself beyond your limits. It could also mean that there are some professional drives that are really kind of clashing with your need for kind of being alone or being more, I think, isolated with Saturn and the Neptune and the North Node in your sign. It can also mean that you're having to take necessary action at work, which is creating a little bit of friction or some challenges in a relationship dynamic as well. And that could be, you know, you're not vibing with a manager or a business partner, or you're so busy at work that, you know, it's creating some relational disharmony that could potentially come up with a romantic relationship as well. The positive here is that if you can really find the balance and focus on maturity and responsibility and show up in your career, you know, you can, I think, navigate some of the squares that are going to come at a later date a little bit better, but you're also going to feel like authority figures, bosses, parents are just kind of like on your back, and they're really pushing you to kind of show up and be efficient. I think what can happen here is you can see some major career leaps. Watch for conflicts or some heated debates in the workspace, and there's definitely going to be some financial or philosophical shifts that are going to happen in the midst of this square. This is all about balancing your ambition with soul. And I think for a lot of you guys, it's been about surrendering and kind of going with the flow of what's changing at work, trying to be optimistic about some of these changes and being more creative in the process, and really revisiting your values throughout this process so that way you can feel more authentic and also reach more success when it comes to the square. But certainly the lessons will keep rolling for Pisces and Pisces risings, because like I said, the weeks to follow, it'll square Saturn and Neptune. So now's a good time to ask yourselves, you know, what actions am I taking to really show up out in the world? Am I overdoing it? Am I doubting myself? You know, do I need a little bit more guidance? Do I need to be listening to superiors or people who can kind of be guiding me through this process? And are you driven purely by money, or are you really wanting to show up and be seen out in the world? So ask yourself those questions throughout this transit. Watch for some pivotal changes in your professional life, and try to surrender to being in the spotlight, because I think it can be good for you guys. All right, so that's the Mars in Sagittarius square, the North and the South Node video. I hope it's helpful for you guys. I hope you feel inspired throughout the next week or two to show up, to create change. Remember that the square is kind of like a cosmic call to action, and it's about finding our soul's purpose. So embrace the tension, I think, as like a teacher, and it's going to help us really release the old and step boldly into new growth. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know how the Mars square manifests for you guys in the comments below. What's your rising sign and what is getting impacted in your chart? Until next time, I'll see all of you guys very soon. Take care.